you! What the hell? You're never gonna shut up about the Quinn Hughes trade! I know! 4, 5, 6, 7 straight videos on Quinn Hughes, former Vancouver Canuck, current Minnesota Wild. It's gonna get weird trying to say that over and over again, since Wild is a singular noun in itself. But Vancouver traded their captain Quinn Hughes to the Wild yesterday. And we've already done our song and dance, 3 straight videos talking about the Quinn Hughes situation in itself and diving into what exactly it is Vancouver just did here. But I wanted to talk about some of the other teams, because yes, it is true, I'm a Vancouver guy, was raised here, not born here. I was born in the Philippines, but raised in Vancouver, Canucks fan. I wanted to talk about my team leaving their captain on the block and sending him away to Minnesota. But we do have to have a conversation or two about the team that has acquired him. And I do want to insert another team into this conversation as well. I also wanted to talk about the Detroit Red Wings. And I know that kind of feels like it's coming out of left field here, but there is an angle. And we'll get into it sooner rather than later. So, in all the videos that we've been making about this Quinn Hughes situation, getting traded to wherever it is he could get traded to, there have been so many teams linked to Vancouver's former captain. Minnesota came out of left field. We didn't really know that the Wild were involved in this at all. But the night before, Elliot Friedman went out there and talked about New Jersey. Detroit, Utah, Carolina, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, the Rangers, the Capitals. That's a list of 8 gosh darn teams in the National Hockey League, literally almost a third. Add on Minnesota, and you've got yourselves a long list of teams that were reportedly getting involved in these Quinn Hughes trade talks. Not to mention the fact that Vegas was tossed in there as well. That would have been crazy. But Quinn Hughes ultimately getting sent over to the Minnesota Wild is a really good choice. Really good. And even though it may not necessarily have been Quinn's first choice, Rutherford went out there and said this: the Canucks were talking to Eastern teams regarding Quinn Hughes because that's what he kind of wanted. But once Bill Guerin called a week ago and asked if he could get in, and once they put together their offer, Rutherford said nobody else came close to it. Which is why I'm really ecstatic about the return that the Canucks got. Absolutely, it sucks that Quinn Hughes got traded, but considering the circumstances and considering how he was pretty much halfway out the door already, getting this return is awesome. First round pick plus Zeev Buium, Marco Rossi, and Liam Öhgren. Now, we have already talked about this return at length, so we're not gonna dive into that here. The Minnesota Wild are missing out on Marco Rossi, who, by the way, isn't even playing right now anyway because he's on the IR. Zeev Buium's spot gets replaced with Quinn Hughes, and you have Liam Öhgren, who probably is getting replaced by Nick Aube-Kubel in the lineup today for Minnesota. But here's the thing. For all this talk about Quinn Hughes and how maybe selfish he was playing with the Vancouver Canucks this season, how he doesn't want to pass to guys on his team, he tries to take shots too often, he tries to do too much, I just gotta hope, man. Make a gosh darn pass to Kirill Kaprizov. You've got that guy on your right. You've got Matt Boldy with the ability to control and weave through guys. You've got Eriksson Ek winning battles, and you've got Tarasenko as a revived Russian sniper, still doing his thing. Quinn, he better go out there and put together a Norris caliber level of play with the Minnesota Wild. I think if he's going to be super motivated to head over there, he's finally feeling it. He's feeling good. He's like, wait a minute, I'm not playing on the last place team in the NHL anymore in Vancouver. I'm getting bumped up to first class, baby. This could be what Quinn Hughes is needed to fully break out of that kind of selfish-ish way of maneuvering around the offensive zone, and inability to just read off of teammates and make plays in that way. Not that he hadn't made plays at all, but like just the kinds of plays that Quinn Hughes is capable of doing. We didn't see much of that this year. You can say it's due to his training. He did admit that he took it easy this summer compared to previous years because, in his words, it's like, oh, he understands what his body needs to get the best performance out of it. So, hey, I'm not going to question a guy who was able to win a Norris Trophy in the National Hockey League, but he didn't look good this season with Vancouver comparative to before. But now that he's in Minnesota, this could be a totally stacked division. I mean, Cale Makar, Miro Heiskanen, and Quinn Hughes all sharing the ranks in the Central? That's scary. And I know there are a number of fans from around the NHL that would be looking at this situation and saying, wait a minute, whatever happened to going out east? Whatever happened to the Detroit Red Wings? Whatever happened to the Capitals? Well, we're going to be talking about Washington later in today's show, but I also wanted to talk about the Detroit Red Wings because there are a number of folks that are going out there and debating whether or not Detroit actually had the sauce to be able to put together a suitable Quinn Hughes trade package. Think about the assets for a second that Minnesota sent away. First-round pick in 2026, Marco Rossi, Liam Ogren, and Zeev Buium. Ryan Hanna of the Wing Wheeled Pod said this, that's a big haul for Vancouver, and I'm not saying Detroit couldn't have matched it, but it would have been a lot. Something like Edvinsson, maybe Axel Sandin-Pellikka, but Zeev Buium's value is much higher. Kasper or a Danielson, Buchelnikov, Lombardi, and a Mazur maybe, and a first? Buium is the big piece here. And as much as I love Simon Edvinsson, I probably would say that I'd rather have Zeev Buium over him. The Vancouver Canucks made that choice. I'd take Buium over Axel Sandin-Pellikka as well. That is no disrespect to the guys on the Wings. I love my Wings. They're one of my favorite teams, but man, you really start to see the value when you think about Buium's attachment in that trade. Now, could the Red Wings have made something work with a trade that looks like Edvinsson, Kasper, let's just say Lombardi, and a first? I do think that the Minnesota Wild package is better. Buium is an upgrade over the defenseman that Detroit could have given. I would rather have Marco Rossi over Marco Kasper at this stage. They're both young. They both have a lot of potential, but Marco Rossi is proven. And then Liam Ogren, I mean, there's a sentimentality there because he is a former line mate of Jonathan Lekkerimäki. There's a lot to like out of that connection. First round pick, okay, Detroit's first round pick, I'd probably wager a bet and say it's going to be more valuable than Minnesota's this year, but if you're making a trade for Quinn Hughes, that kind of doesn't really matter because whichever team gets Quinn is going to have a much worse first round pick, if you get what I mean. The Grindline guys went out there and said this, to match the Hughes offer for Minnesota, you're looking at Edvinsson, Kasper, or Danielson, Finney, and a 2026 first. The reluctance to move Edvinsson and the proven track record of Rossi are probably the sticking points as to why the Red Wings could not get this trade done. And it makes sense. To make that deal, you create more holes that Hughes alone doesn't fix. Buium is projected to grade out higher than Edvinsson, and if Hughes only wants to sign long-term in Jersey, then you don't make the trade. Disappointing? Sure. Understandable? Absolutely. And I think that's a super rational way of looking at it as well. This all works for Minnesota as long as Quinn Hughes signs long-term. We don't know if he will, but a lot of Wild fans that I saw on their own subreddit and whatnot were complaining like, hey, wait a minute, we just gave up a whole bunch of stuff. Rossi, Ogren, Buium, a first, that's not nothing. And we don't even know if this guy's going to re-sign and stay with us beyond 2027. I'll tell you this, folks. Even if he doesn't, if you win the Stanley Cup in 2026, it doesn't matter. If he gets a championship ring, then it doesn't matter. He can leave in 2026 if you want. Trade him to New Jersey if he ends up winning a Stanley Cup in 2026 because it's like, yeah, no, like you fulfilled your duty, you brought us the cup, thank you, now you can peace off and go with your brothers and re-sign there. You'd be doing him a favor if you were to set it up that way. But of course, we know the Minnesota Wild, they probably have higher aspirations than just having 1 year of Quinn Hughes. Ultimately, though, this is a pretty big ask, and the Detroit Red Wings, they had reluctance to move on from some of their players. It makes sense why they could not have matched it, especially now knowing that this was the crazy package that they ended up receiving. Vancouver got Buium, Rossi, Ogren, and a first, 4 first-round caliber assets, 2 amazing prospects, or at least no, One is an amazing prospect. One is an okay prospect. One is not a prospect anymore, but he was amazing when he was younger. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Minnesota's new number one defenseman, how he's going to change the scope for Minnesota hockey against Colorado, against Dallas, what he could do with Kirill Kaprizov, and if you're a Red Wings fan, how do you feel about the potential offer that to match that Minnesota deal? And do you think it would have been enough? Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. And bye.